Welcome back to another episode of Aussie Google Earth Explorer. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of the most fascinating and important waterways in the world. That's right, we're talking about the Suez Canal. This is a man-made canal that connects the Red Sea in the south to the Mediterranean Sea in the north. Every year, 17,000 ships pass through this thing. Okay, 30% of the world's global container trade goes through the Suez Canal. 13% of the world's global trade goes through the Suez Canal. If you're watching this video from somewhere in Europe or North America and you have any sort of technology in your room right now or your house, there's a pretty good chance that it passed through this canal, okay? Now, the idea of this canal, it really has been around for a long time. The ancient Egyptians had this concept a long, long time ago. They used to just rock up here with boats and they'd park them here and they'd chuck them on camels, all their goods on camels, and they'd camel everything up here, and then they'd chuck it back on boats and they'd continue their journey to Europe up here. So there was always this choke point. This always existed. But it wasn't until maybe like 1850s, 1859, that they finally said, we're going to build a canal here. We're actually going to cut the land open and we're going to create a trade route to make it easier, okay? They did this by hand, if you can believe it or not. I know the Egyptians have a history of building crazy things by hand, but they dug this thing by hand. 80 million cubic meters of soil was moved by hand. Hundreds of thousands of workers dug this canal out by hand. It took 10 years between 1859 and 1869, and thousands of people died. So this was a really, I guess this is slave labor in effect right here. That's how they built this canal. This canal is over, I think it's about just under 200 kilometers long, just under 200 Ks long, and it's about 200 meters wide. So it's not very wide. Like if we take a look at this ship here, let's zoom in on this ship. This is not a container ship. You can see by the way that this hull has been designed. This is carrying some sort of raw material, I believe. But if you spun this ship on the side, it wouldn't be that much wider than the length of a ship. So it's actually quite a thin canal, right? I mean, look at a lot of these ships, and especially if you zoom along here and you notice that it kind of gets skinnier and wider, depends on where we're looking. So there are parts of this canal that are really, really thin, and it's actually quite dangerous to go through here. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode of a very famous example when the Suez Canal was blocked. To go through this canal, so from all the way up here in Port Said down here to Suez, takes about 12 hours, which that might seem like a long time, 12 hours. But let's just get a little bit of context here, and let's just talk about why this exists. Why did they build this? Apart from trying to get the goods from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, why not go another way? So let's just zoom out here and let's just get our bearings and let's just talk about a potential situation why I'm going to use the Suez Canal, right? If I'm over here in China and I want to send an iPhone from Shenzhen province here and I want to get it to somewhere in the UK, I've got two options. I'm going to fang it down here through the South China Sea, all right? I'm going to come up here through Singapore and I'm going to go through the Malacca Strait. This is called the Malacca Strait. This is one of the busiest shipping routes in the world. And if we zoom in here, you can actually see the amount. Look at the amount of shipping traffic in this area. Look at the amount of boats in this area. It is insanely busy. This is one of the most busy places for shipping in the world. Look at the Malacca Strait, dude. Look at this thing. All these boats are passing through here, either dropping things off at Singapore and doing trade in Asia, or they're cruising up the Malacca Strait and they're on their way to Europe and other countries. So I cut it, I chuck a left, and I'm fanging it up Malacca Strait. And I'm over here now. I pump around Sri Lanka, down the bottom of India, and I get to this point here. I have two choices. I can either go up the Suez Canal, or I have to circumnavigate all the way around Africa, around the continent of Africa, to come to the western side of Europe. If I was to go this way, it would add on about 15 days to my journey. compared to a 10-hour trip through the Suez Canal. So the time and money that is saved by going through the Suez Canal is insanely advantageous for business, okay? The Egyptian government owns the Suez Canal, and they each year make about $8 billion of tolls. I mean, this is effectively like a big toll road, right? You pay a toll, instead of it being $20, it's $100,000, right? And you're going through it in a boat instead of a car. You know what? The Suez Canal is pretty much like the living embodiment of the children's nursery rhyme, I'm going on a bear hunt. All right? Going on a bear hunt, can't go over it, can't go around it, have to go through it. All right? This is literally going on a bear hunt, going on a shipping hunt, got to go through it. That's why they built the Suez Canal. All right? Bang. Right here, through the Suez Canal. Once I get up here and I pump through the Suez Canal, I cruise up here and I have access to all of Europe, okay? If I want to get my goods to drop them off in Greece, wherever it is, I can go through the Gibraltar Strait here, and then I have access to the east coast of the United States over here. If I didn't want to go that way, that's fine. Just really quickly, let's just talk about one other thing. If I'm going right from China or from Tokyo or anywhere in Korea, South Korea, I can just go across the Pacific, and then I have access to the west coast of the United States. But if I want to get goods to the east coast, it's way, way quicker to go through the Suez Canal. So that's kind of why they built it. That's why it's important, right? It has no locks. So a lock is when the sea level difference is higher or lower based on where you start. So you need to float your boat to a different level, different sea level. But because the Mediterranean and Red Sea are at the same level, you just fang through here. You just pump it through. And you'll notice that there's two sides, okay? There's two sides. And this is actually a new development. They didn't used to have two sides. They only had one side. And if we zoom in here and we just have a little look, let's have a look at a couple of ships. You can see the wake of this ship is going north, and the wake of this ship is traveling south. So there's two sides to the canal, right? But the whole canal hasn't got two sides. It's only got two sides in certain areas, right? As you come through here, there's only one lane. And in 2021, a ship, unfortunately, spun sideways and blocked the Suez Canal. Let's just zoom in on this one because this is a really good example. I said it was only 200 meters wide. You can imagine if this ship spun here, there's a good chance it's going to block. Like, look at this pinch point. That is definitely not the width of the ship. So the year is 2021, okay? And let's just look at this ship. Front of a ship, this is how I remember it. Front of a ship is called the bow, and the rear is called the stern. And how you remember that is the bow, you bow forward, and then the opposite is your stern. And then port, you can remember port is left because the word left has 4 letters and the word port has 4 letters. And starboard is right because it has more letters, and also port is left, etc., etc. So it's 2021, and a ship called the Ever Given, which was a container ship, ran aground in the canal. So it spun sideways, and its bow hit the side here, and then its port hit the other side here. So it was stuck, right? And the reason why this happened, and this is an interesting example. This is not a container ship, right? This ship is carrying some sort of raw materials, like iron ore or coal or something. But if this was a container ship, you can imagine all the containers are stacked up really, really tall, and they kind of act like a bit of a sail. So when the wind blows, it can turn the ship left and right based on how strong the wind is. On this day, there was a super strong sandstorm, and it blew the ship sideways, and it wedged itself in the side of the canal and blocked it. Okay, it blocked it, the whole thing, and it blocked it for, I think it was 6 days, maybe. Yeah, 6 days it blocked it. In those 6 days, 369 ships were trapped at either the top or the bottom of the canal, and they could not get through. We said this before, 17,000 ships pass through this thing every single year. So there was a huge buildup of ships. Every single hour that the canal was blocked, all right, it estimated $400 million in lost productivity, which is a staggering amount. $400 million each hour In the 6 days that it was blocked, they estimate $10 billion worth of trade and productivity was lost. And when they finally dislodged this boat, the Egyptian government impounded it, and they had to pay a certain amount, which is an undisclosed amount, which was never publicly unveiled. But you can imagine that it would have been a huge fine for blocking the Suez Canal. If we just zoom out a little bit here, and this is another interesting point about this canal, just where it is geographically and what's happening in this area. Cruise down here, right? And you can see that to get to the Suez Canal, you have to go through this pinch point right here. And unfortunately, in this area currently, it's a pretty hot zone. All right. On the left-hand side, you have Somalia, and you have the risk of pirates. And when I say pirates, I don't mean Captain Jack Sparrow, people with swords. I'm talking about 10 boys in a skip with a couple of outboard motors, some AK-47s and a rocket launcher, and they're going to try and jump onto your ship and take your stuff, right? So it's not exactly the pirates of old. It's definitely the pirates of new. They should probably do something about their PR. I think they've probably got a bad image at the moment, the old Somalian pirates. But that's neither here or there. They're on the left-hand side, right? So you have to go through this pinch point, and this is a hot zone. All right, and a lot of shipping companies get really nervous. They have a lot of private military contractors on board these ships with weapons. They have like guns all the time, ready to rock, just in case there's any trouble. On the right-hand side, you have Yemen, and you have Houthi rebels in Yemen firing missiles at Israeli ships in the past couple of years. In fact, trade through this area in the last 2 years, because of certain factors, has dropped by 40%. That's what the Egyptian government is saying. It's dropped by 40%. So there's a lot of reasons why it can fluctuate how much people actually use this thing. When I was a kid, actually, I spent a lot of time in canals. I don't know if this is a common experience, but man, we swam in canals all the time, like yucky drainage canals that had farm runoff with like chemicals and all this bunch of weird stuff in it. So I always feel a bit of a kinship to the people that dug the Suez Canal, because myself, I spent a lot of time in canals as a kid, sort of mucking around, being gross. But there you go, Suez Canal, right? What a place. It's pretty interesting though when you think about how much really passes through here and just how fragile it is, because it's such a small opening. Any disruption to this thing can have such a massive impact on global trade, right? When this was blocked in 2021, it came at the absolute worst time because it was COVID, and there was already massive pressures on supply chains, and people were already stressed out about getting deliveries on time, and there was fluctuations in market prices from all these different reasons. And then you have a massive blockade of the Suez Canal, and you lose all this productivity. So it came at a shocking time, right? And it really upset the global economy. It was big dramas, big dramas. But that's the Suez Canal in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed that video. It's a short one today. But yeah, the Suez Canal, one of the most important shipping routes in the world, connecting the Red Sea in the south to the Mediterranean in the north. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.